Welcome to Business on the Vine. I'm your host, Lady Jen Duplessis, and in this dynamic series, we dive into the challenges, breakthroughs, and victories of entrepreneurs who have turned their passion into success. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lady Jen Duplessis, your host of Business on the Vine. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I get all kinds of great comments about everyone saying, hey, I'm listening while I'm working out, and then I can't take notes. And so find a place. Find a place if that's what you need. But I'm delighted today to have a new friend. I can't wait to learn all about you, Victoria. Victoria Pelletier. Did I do that right?
Pelletier. Close.
Pelletier. Pelletier. Look, Duplessis is Duplessis. You'd think I would know, right? Pelletier. She's an award-winning executive leader, #1 best-selling author. Like most of us, right? She's speaking. She's a public figure. She's doing all kinds of wonderful, great things in the world. One of the things that I love is the phrase that you use, which is unstoppable and dynamic, born to lead and not to be led. And that's exactly what Business on the Vine is all about. It's about being a leader and having a business that is sustainable for a really long time. And we want to hear from the grapevine, right? I heard it through the grapevine, some of the stories that you have to tell. And I know that it starts out that way, but you're also known as the turnaround queen. And I want to talk a little bit about that too, and make sure that we have, we get as much as we can from the time that we have together. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited. So I want to talk first about your leadership journey. Tell me about your leadership journey. I was just talking to someone, earlier today, and she said, my son is going to be a resident, RA, resident. I can't remember what it was. I was one of them in college, right? Where you manage the floor, right? And I remember when I thought, oh, I'm having an interview with you, so I'm going to talk about this. The resident person, someone's going to give me the name in a bit, but and I thought it would just be fun, right? Fun, because it paid for my tuition and I got more food, right? And so I like, oh, it's going to be fun. And then I found out that there are emotions and there are breakups and there are bad grades and there are people who don't like each other. And I had to learn to be a leader. And I think maybe that's where my leadership skills really came from, was being that resident person, where, oh, I didn't know I was going to have to do all this stuff. So tell us a little bit about, where did this start for you that led you to being such a great leader?
Mine started very young as well, even before being an RA, which I think is resident advisor. I think
Advisor. That's it. Thank you. God, thank you so much.
so I started working at 11. Like I'm sure child labor laws would not allow this today, but I worked in a hair salon while I was 11, doing everything except for the hair, right? The booking
Yeah.
appointments, doing the cash, doing the cleaning. And then by 14 was my first leadership role. I became the assistant manager of the shoe store that I worked at while I was in high school.
Wow. Which no shoe stores exist.
And then I had way too many shoes at home, sadly. And
Yeah.
still to this day, that's probably where it started.
Right. Right. Wow. Wow. That's crazy. So you started there, obviously you went to school, you had to, whether you went to college or not, and I think you did, but, whether you did or not, somehow this all morphed and you retained that. So where did it really start for you in the workforce when you started getting, into the actual workforce, and how did you pull some of the skills that you learned before into your position?
So I graduated high school a couple of years early, went off to university, and I worked in in a call center at a bank while I was in school. Flexible, right? Allowed me to work around my school schedule. I was also doing some acting on the side, and I had taken there. I got promoted in less than 6 months into a leadership role there, and I think the role that I had already in leadership, albeit in sales in a shoe store, helped. And it was not the path at all, Jen, that I thought I was going to be on. I wanted to be a lawyer. So I was doing my undergraduate degree with an intent to go to law school afterwards. But I
Yeah.
continued to get promoted up through the bank. I loved my role in leadership. I also loved the business world. So what I thought was putting off 1 year before going to law school became never. I've never went
Never,
to law
never
school.
went. Yeah. Yeah.
No, no. So I've leveraged, all of my experience, there's lots of like adversity and things. I'm extremely resilient. I've taken that. I'm a voracious learner. So learning how to perform and learning how to lead, and I made mistakes in that part, but how to lead, bringing all of those together to then take my first executive role as chief operating officer at 24 years old.
Yeah, I know, and I read that about you. I thought that was so interesting about it. And I'm thinking back, I'm going, hey, did I ever have a real good job that I forgot about? I should tell people, right? So, but leadership, there's a lot of conversations about leadership, that it comes, you have to be a natural born leader, it's a learned leader. What are your thoughts about leadership?
I think nature versus nurture, I think it's both. I think there are some elements to being natural. So some of it can be innate, but I also think is learned. And so I look at my example. Because I was a leader at such an early age, and I was often the only woman, and
Me too. Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
thrown in, particularly in my executive career, as the youngest. So I think of that first exec role, I was 2 decades younger than my peers, and the only woman. And so
Yeah.
I felt I needed to show up in a very particular way from a leadership perspective. I also entered the corporate world in a command and control top-down environment and realized like that doesn't make for a good leader. So I think I had natural leadership abilities. I played sports. And so, being, a role model in the teams I played for helped. But really, I had to learn some things to show up in a very different way to be the kind of leader I'd want to work for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, you're bringing back just a lot of thinking, a lot of thoughts about, that process. And I'm sure someone who's listening is saying, oh yeah, I kind of had that same kind of story, where, because there's one type of leader that thinks they're a leader and they're like, come on. And they start running and then they look back and no one's following them. Right. And
Yeah.
the kind of leader that says, let's go. Right, let's go together, let's go, and it's almost leading from behind sometimes, let's go and go out and do it. Okay, so you had all this leadership, and now today I know what you're doing is you're working with people on leadership skills, and what do you think is the number one? I want to talk about entrepreneurs specifically, not in the corporate world. What do you think is the number one challenge that people have who become entrepreneurs after a career in corporate? That happens, right? And then we go, oh, we're going to be an entrepreneur. Life happens, our job leaves us, we have more to give, whatever it is. What do you think is the number one skill set that's missing for most entrepreneurial leaders in being able to um, I don't want to say grow their team, because some people don't want to grow a team, and I get that. Some people don't want to scale, but in being able to corral people around them so they don't have to do everything themselves.
That mindset of exactly what you're talking about, Jen. I think too many entrepreneurs believe in large part because they start and they need to scale and they don't have the capital to maybe hire all of the people. And so they're trying to do it all themselves
Yeah.
without the requisite experience or capability, or quite frankly, the desire to do some of those pieces. And so then I find they don't get done well. And so understanding how to, I'll just call orchestrate the skills around to be able to deliver. And there's a multitude of ways to do that as an entrepreneur, whether you can hire fractionally as you're scaling.
Mhm.
There's still a whole barter system that we can do in terms of, maybe someone's a strong marketer versus being a strong operator, learning how to leverage all of those things. And then also building the growth mindset.
Yeah.
I don't know many entrepreneurs who don't want to grow and scale. But how do you build that and build belief in the people they bring on board in their vision in terms of where they're looking to grow and achieve?
Yeah. So, okay. So let's dig a little deeper. So you made the comment, you don't know a lot. It's funny because I run across a lot of people, both sides. Cause I mean, my specialty is helping people that are already successful become more successful and then without sacrificing their personal life. Right. But, um, but I've heard a lot of people saying lately is I don't want to manage a bunch of people. I don't want to have a big team. Been there, done that, don't like it. I've heard people say, well, I'm just going to use AI, but I don't know how to use any AI, but I'm going to have an AI agent and an AI team. And that's a challenge too. But where do you think this stems from? I'm just going to keep it open like that. Where do you think it stems from that people are reluctant to take the action that's needed?
Um, a lot of times fear, to be honest.
Mhm.
Making some of the bold moves are uncomfortable. Uh,
Mhm.
and so
Yeah.
and a lot of times that's rooted in fear, and sometimes it's just fear of the unknown, or lack of experience. Now, on some of the other areas you talked around in terms of people who are saying, look, I don't want to lead teams anymore. And maybe it's because they've done it. I also think that's just it's tried and true. I think there are lots of people, and I really saw a shift because of the pandemic, right?
Mhm.
You've just said, and I don't like all the headlines, the quiet quitting, the great resignation, they get great headlines. But the reality is there was an outcry from the workforce who wanted something different in their leaders, connected to purpose, and getting clarity over what brings them personal or professional joy and value. And so I think that's why we're hearing more who are being declarative over the stuff they just don't want to do anymore.
Yeah, well, it was the excuse, and I don't mean it in that way, but it was collectively the excuse for I've had enough. I'm not going to do it like this anymore. It was being in the mush, where the mundane or not mundane, but just status quo was okay. It was okay, and there
Mhm.
were well a lot of disruptors in there. What helps a company turn around when you're being named as the turnaround queen? Is this a turnaround from mindset shift that I'm not going to work by myself, I'm going to bring some people on? Is this a turnaround from expenses? Is it a turnaround from retention? Right, or turnover? I'll say turnover instead, right? How have you been coined the turnaround queen?
So I have never been a status quo person, right? I'm the type of person who generally breaks stuff to put it back together again. So as a result of that and being like having that innate
Yeah.
DNA, I do think it's innate for me in that regard. I'm given challenges and
Yeah.
how to solve the challenges. So
Yeah.
I've been put in that position time and time again, including and now 40 mergers, acquisitions, or divestiture transactions that I've been a part of. And many of those occur because the business isn't performing. So when you
Yeah.
turn around in my the experience that I've led is usually underperforming teams or businesses.
Yeah.
So I've been able to do that a multitude of times, which is how I've garnered that nickname.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm doing all these comparisons. I'm so sorry because this is about you, but I am going to make these comparisons. There was a time in my career where I would be moved from office to office to fix it. Like
Mm.
fix them, make their sales go up. They hate each other. Like go in and fix it, right? Like fix it, make this thing be a top performing branch, right? And so I go, oh, at first I loved it. I was like, ooh, look at me. I'm the fixer, right? But then I realized that I was a pioneer and not a settler,
Mm.
right? And I would go in and pioneer. And then just as things were getting good, they moved me to another office. And then some guy would come in. Sorry, guys. I'm married to one. It's okay. Some, but some guy would come in and he would manage the office. It's perfect. And he would get all the accolades and go to President's Club and da 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 da. And I'm over there trying to fix another office, right? I think that as leaders, we do want to fix things. I think sometimes how do we prevent things from being broken when we don't want that? Because you and I thrive on that, right? We're like, just show it to me, let me fix it, right? But how do we prevent things from being broken? What is the best strategy for a business owner in today's world? It's not a market, it's not a political anything. In today's world, what is the best way for someone to learn how to lead?
Uh, there's there's no silver bullet. I wish I could share that there is, quite frankly. But the reality is, I think, the definition of insanity, they say, doing things over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah.
That breaking out of that cycle, that takes courage. That requires being bold. And that is what is required of today's leader. So to not get in the situation, Jen, as you said, to need to fix things means we need to be making different decisions that, by the way, can be very uncomfortable to make. You're impacting, maybe you're doing a reorganization, you're moving people around, you're exiting people, you're taking bold, different strategic decisions than you've made in the past. So leadership requires that, I think, to be successful today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's kind of a disruptor, right? In some sense, it's a disruptor because, like I use this term, be the straw that stirs the market.
I love it.
Right. I'm always going, how do I stir it up? How do I create a new market? How do I be the straw that stirs the market? There's disruption, there's negative disruption, and then there's positive disruption, right? So when we think about making decisions, do you have a process that you use or a framework that people could use on, okay, this isn't working. I need to make a decision to do something different. So I'm not in insanity. What can I do? What's the first step? And that's the only step you have to give us. What is the first step that someone needs to take to make a different decision, yet still be that disruptor and the person who stirs the market?
Well, I think I have a phrase I use pretty frequently for a multitude of things: strategic intentionality, right? So
Mm,
the need to be strategic in making the decisions. By the way, let's talk about org structure for a second. So that's you build the right structure, for the business, not around the people. You put the people into the boxes later, right?
yeah.
So, be strategic around those decisions, around total addressable market, the TAM, as you talk about creating new markets, like be strategic, founded and backed by data, and then be intentional in terms of the actions you take towards delivering against that strategy.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned structure. There are so many people. Thank you for that answer, by the way. I think that's brilliant. And I love I love anything that says strategy, strategic, intentional. I even have a little card on my desk here. It says intention is everything. Intention is everything. Yeah, and I think that's so important. And so many people build their business by default and not by design. And they bring people in because they're at the capacity that says, I just need somebody. I need anybody that can help me, who really won't help them because they're not prepared for them to come into the position. And so I love what you said. And let me ask you to say it again. What did you say about the structure, about box filling, just so that everyone's clear on what you're talking about here about you can fill the people later?
Yeah, you need to build the right, it's called a target operating model. You need to build the right structure that's aligned to whatever your business is, the markets and the way in which you function. And then you put the people with the most experience against that functional structure you've built rather than building the structure around the people you have.
Yeah, beautiful. And here's another way for me to say the back end of that is, hey, I like you. I'll bring you on and we'll find something for you to do. Right.
Well, I see that. It's funny. I wrote an article the other day where I actually talked around this sort of fork in the road that leaders will need to go through in terms of courageousness, loyalty. And so I see a lot of lack of movement of structure because it's guised in around loyalty. I'm loyalty to the people that I've brought in. The reality is, I think you can.
Emotion.
Exactly. And so I
Yeah.
think you can make the right decisions and treat people well, but still build the right structure. The people that got you here might not be the people who bring you forward
Oh,
as
I love hearing that. Yes. Yeah. It's so important. I always do it. I always do it on, a ladder leaning against a wall as you go up those rungs, unless you're a barrel of monkeys and can reach down and let everybody pull, be strong enough to pull all the anchors up. It's time to let them go. You have to. I love that. How often should someone be looking at their structure, as you're talking about this and saying, what's next year like? Where do I need to cut? Where does I thought I needed, we'll use social media. I thought I need a marketer and a social media person, but now I really don't need that. How often should someone be analyzing that and making those decisions?
I think at a minimum, you do need to look at annually. So as you're building your strategic plan going into the next year, you need to then look at and I actually encourage people now to be looking at skills versus role profiles. What
Yeah.
finite skills? Exactly, Jen, to the one you said. Marketer, that's a broad, like what type, what finite skills do you need? Is it search engine optimization? Do you need someone who understands AI, who's going to build agents to interact with those who hit your website? So again, let's look at skills. So at a minimum once a year, but if you're in, as the market changes, as those external forces change, demands by customer or the world we're living in, you might need to do it even more frequently in certain parts of the business.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, yeah, it depends on what growth mode you're in too, right? That could definitely have a play in it. Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Okay, so as we're finishing up our time here today, I want to ask you, is there anything you would like to talk about that I haven't asked you a question about?
Hmm.
Look at that.
We
Turning
talked.
the tables on you,
I
just
know, no, I love it.
making you feel uncomfortable. I saw you adjust.
Yeah, no, I like it though. I told you I thrive in that environment. You didn't ask me where we danced around. We didn't use the C word culture for me, and I don't. And so I do get asked a lot about that because it's something I'm passionate about. However, what I would say is culture is the outcome of some of what we've talked about around leadership, the way we act, the way we talk, that is aligned to the vision or the purpose that we talk about. It's the ways we work. And so I get asked, I've been leading human capital businesses for a number of years. And so I'm
Right.
asked for the silver
Yeah.
bullet as it relates to culture. I'm like, again, culture is the outcome, all of these different things. And so I find myself having a lot of time these days talking with clients around how to build culture drives performance. So how to build the right kind of environment that subsequently drives performance.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I love that. I love that that piece of it because again, this also goes back to the quality of leadership, right? Because if you are, and you and I probably know some terminology that we won't use here because I was going to use some terminology, but if we know someone who makes you feel uncomfortable because they walk in and you're like, I'm on eggshells. Now I'm on eggshells. That's not the culture or the environment that you want to have in your company. But I also think it's important that whatever it is that you want in your company, that you let your team know that that's what you're trying to do so that they can hold you accountable for what you said. If you keep it to yourself and you wish and hope that everybody is doing the culture that you had hoped for and you aren't acting like it, you're never going to get anywhere. You're going to have a ton of retention or turnover. And I imagine you've got some comments on that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I do think you need to be incredibly transparent. I refer to it as whole human leadership when we talk, but it's quite frankly, it's everyone in the organization, whether you're a formal leader of people or not. And a big part of being that kind of leader means being incredibly transparent around the decisions that are being made. There's other elements, to whole human leadership, but I think that's one of the most critical. That builds trust with our employees, and that creates the safety. So there's a sense of belonging, which in turn reduces turnover.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What do you see as the future of workforce, given that we have AI, which I sometimes call actual interaction? Right? You can have all kinds of AI, but what do you see as the future of the workforce with companies and entrepreneurs?
Well, so every company is a technology company. So we need to just be grounded in that. And we will need to be using AI in a variety of different ways. So the future of work will include a significant amount of AI, but rooted in the humanity. You need both to
Ooh,
come together.
yeah,
And so that's going to be critical. And far too many right now are jumping on the Gen AI bandwagon and saying, "Oh, I'm laying off all of these people." I'm going to tell you, Jen, they don't even know yet. And I work for a technology company. They don't even know yet. And so you need both. You need AI, you need the strategy, the use cases in terms of how to use it effectively, combined with the people to create the right kind of experience and outcome to
yeah.
leverage.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree about this because my focus is specifically on team building for the purpose of scaling, right? And when people say they don't want a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of team, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is what I teach, and everybody's going to AI, right? But I can tell you that even in my own team, I could have hired another three people instead I have one, and she learned how to use, we learned how to use AI when it came out, right? We learned how to use it so that she could stay on, and I just bumped her salary, but bumped her salary so that I didn't have to have three additional people.
Yeah.
And that's where I think this is going to go, is what other skills does someone have that they could utilize AI to, retain their position and not have somebody else come in and keep our bottom line great. Yeah, I totally agree about that. You didn't say much about, and I'm just curious about generational leadership. I call it Gen Lead. I work on this a lot too. Is it never in time have we ever had the situation where we have five generations in the workforce at a same company? What are you seeing there, and what are some thoughts that you might have for someone who is young in business and say, well, I'm just going to hire young people? What are they missing? And someone who is, saying, well, I'm not hiring those young people.
Yeah, it is a very, very interesting time, Jen, to have this many, generations in the workforce. And so, but this is where it becomes even more incumbent upon one, the role of HR. I will say it's still viewed by some as a more transactional payroll and benefits. It is
Yeah,
the strategic business advisor to, the business leaders to help, again, build the right kind of culture and environment to build a sense of belonging, the right kind of skills and building for future. But this is where there needs to be an incredible investment in leadership, because
yeah.
leading five different generations is very different. Again, the eldest in the generation are used to this command and control, top down, like kind of do as they were told, although more questioning that.
Give me a
And
trophy.
yeah, exactly.
Right?
And
Give me a trophy for my performance. Give me a corner office and a title.
well,
Yeah.
and they joke, and I'm a Gen Xer, but like
Yeah.
around like that, just the dynamics and this sort of sandwich,
Right.
that they come
Generation.
in. But it just means it's a very different. And I think leadership development is one of the last things to go from, companies in terms as it relates to investment. But this
Yeah.
is the time, going back to one of your earlier questions to me over like, can you learn it? Yes, and there's things you need to come from a place of what you know, or you don't know what you don't know. And so how do you lead these generations different? The youngest generation thinks of job security. We know that's not really a thing, but investment of their skills, keep me relevant for future. Well,
Yeah.
maybe as an older worker, you might not know that, but also don't underestimate as a younger leader the institutional knowledge that comes from a very experienced worker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And knowing what makes them tick, what makes them, drives them. Because, like I said, if I said, hey, we're going to have a sales competition and you're going to win $10,000, you're going to win a trophy, you can donate the money to charity, right? I'm going to give you an iPad, right? Every generation is going to respond differently to doing that, right? If you said you're going to give somebody older in Boomer an iPad, they would go, they don't want that, right? If you say you're going to give something to charity, maybe a Gen Xer is like, well, no, I don't want charity, I want the money. Give me the money, give me the money, right? So it's really cool to see that that's, what's going to be happening. And the good thing about AI doesn't have a generation, which is kind of fun. Could be interesting to see where that goes. Why don't you break it and then go solve it?
Mm.
Right? I'm giving you a hard time. but it's true, right? It's true. There's something to be said about AI because it can act in a certain capacity. We can ask it to do that. I love it. I absolutely love it.
But again, AI learns, right?
Right, it
So
learns. It learns. So if we want it to, give me the results that, how would someone respond to this in all the generations, would tell us what would happen. So there's another example of how you can use AI. If you don't know these things, ask AI. It's amazing. Okay, so as we finish out our time together, we're going to have your contact information and in the show notes and whatnot. What words of wisdom would you like to leave with everyone?
how about with my favorite quote?
Okay.
By George Adair, everything you've ever wanted lives on the other side of fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
That tied it right in to the fear. That's exactly it. Thank you so much for being such a great guest today. I love that you're leading people. I love that you're out there in the workforce and you're helping businesses become so much better. It's such an honor to spend time with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you so much for listening in, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Done. Oops, not done. She's going to get mad at me. Thank you for joining us on Business on the Vine. If you found value in today's conversation and would like additional support, go to supportfromjen.com. Remember, the best ideas are always discovered on the vine. So keep innovating, stay inspired, and continue to grow.